Good afternoon and welcome to our exam-based presentation for 2020. The subject we are dealing with is educational management, which is a combination of many courses. My name is George Kambetu, and on the screen you will find my number should you need to contact me for any explanation. First of all, we are going to look at the basic concepts and aspects of management. What this means is for you to be able to understand the concepts and the aspects of management with the aim to apply them in certain contexts. Right, but before we get into that, I just want to give you a tip that you have your study guide, and your study guide is actually the compass that navigate your way through for your preparation for your upcoming examination. So you cannot study without your study guide, and your study guide has learning outcomes, which are actually indicating how far you should study. What are the basic competencies, if I have to call them that way? What are the basic competencies that you must master? So you cannot study without looking at the learning outcomes for each and every units. After you have completed the units, or you go through all these units, you should be able to master all the learning outcomes. We are not allowed to give you a scope, as you call it, or to cover what is in the examination, because it is expected from you as a student to study all the units as you are guided by the learning outcomes. However, I will highlight some few topics that you can look at more intensely. And also in the end, I will also give you a few tips on how to avoid some mistakes that you do during examinations. First of all, let us look at this concept: management, manager, and administration. So my question is, what do you understand by what is management? What does it mean? What is a manager? And in the school context, who is a manager? A manager can be a principal in the school context, it can be an HOD, or it can be subject heads. But then they differ in terms of level. That's why we talk of top level manager, middle level manager, and lower level manager. And what is the difference between management and administration? So you, as a student, you need to be able to clearly define the difference between management and administration. You also need to know that there are certain characteristics that are only known for management. So management represents certain characteristics. Classroom management skills. Classroom management is also part of being a manager. And that applies to even a teacher, because when you are in a classroom, you are actually the manager of that class. And you need to have certain skills of how to manage. And as you study, you need to bring this in context. You need to leave yourself in the situation of, as a manager in my own class, what skills do I have? What does the study guide tells me about the particular skills that I must have? And how do I apply these skills in everyday context, in a classroom situation? We always say that teaching is a profession. So as a profession, there are certain characteristics that are known for it to be a profession. Like a medical doctor, for example, there are certain aspects that are required for it to be a profession. For example, for it to be a profession, for a profession to be known as a profession, you need to have gone to university. You need to be accredited by a certain credible institution to be a profession. And there are certain ethics also that are expected from you. There are certain social obligations that are expected from you as a profession. So you cannot just stand up one day and decide, I'm a professional, or this is a profession, but you do not adhere to those requirements. The principal has duties to perform, which we call scope of duties of a principal. And here, this you can look from an angle of leadership, the duties of a principal as a leader, the duty of a principal in terms of making sure that the staff is taken care of, which we call the staff welfare. Duties in terms of development. As a principal, how do I develop my staff? How do I develop my teacher? How do I encourage them to go to the next level? We are talking about continuous professional development that a principal must promote. And also in terms of management, how does a principal manage the school? How does the principal manage the human resources, which are actually the staff members? So you can look to the scope of duties of a principal in terms of those requirements. Management, manager, and administration. When you look at the graph in front of you, it actually represents two areas, namely administration on the left and management on the right. And then you have on the right the different levels. Top level management, where the principal will fall. Middle level management, where the HOD normally will fall. And the lower level management, where the subject heads or section heads will fall. But now look at the demarcation of duty. For example, when you look at top level management, you look at the triangle on the right hand side, a very small portion that represents that in terms of management, there is only a little that is expected from the top level management in terms of management. But in terms of administration, look at the bigger portion on the left-hand side. It means that the principal is more engaged in administration as compared to management. But when you look at the middle-level management, then you will see two equal portions on both aisles. On your right-hand side, it's equal to the left-hand side. So in terms of administration, middle-level management is loaded equally. It's an administrator, 50% administrator, we can say, and 50% management. And when you look at the lower level management, it's completely the opposite of the top level management. The lower level management, which are the subject heads and the section heads, they are managing more than what they are doing administrative duties. So if you go and read further, you will see that administration has more to do with policy formulation, while management has more to do with policy implementation. And that underscores the fact that the top level management, the principal, is more or should be more involved with formulation of duties, interpretation of duties, and so on. Interpretation of policies, formulation of policies, while middle management implement what the top level management is providing, and the lower level management, they are more on the ground. It's like the ground soldier or the foot soldier that are really working closely with teachers on the ground. The basic concept and aspect of management, we can look at the management styles. There are different management styles: autocratic management style, democratic, laissez-faire, and so on. And then there are advantages and disadvantages of each and every management style. So we are not saying that this management style is the appropriate one to use, but it will depend on the circumstances. And as you are going to read about the advantages and disadvantages, you will find that certain styles are applicable when you have to do make a quick decision. For example, you may use autocratic management style, or if you want consultation, you can do the democratic management style. There are advantages and disadvantages to each and every management style, really. Management theories and skills, we can look at contingency theory. There are also other theories, but contingency theory is of interest here. You can look at that theory and explain what does contingency or situational theory means. What does it entail? Under that topic also, managing meetings. As a manager, you should be able to know how to manage meetings. From the little aspects of knowing how to draw up an agenda, knowing how to conduct yourself during meetings, knowing how to allow other people also to take part in meetings in order for you to have successful meetings and so on. And management of ethics in schools. Ethics are very important. And as we said, principals have code of ethics that they have to follow. And this code of ethics must also translate into management. So you need to manage the ethics in a school setup, the way teachers are talking to each other, what your school stands for, the school culture that you promote at school, and how the ethics that you are following support that kind of school culture or school climate. Total quality management is also a theory, and there are certain characteristics that are endemic to total quality management theory. Computers, it's one thing to acquire computers and to have computers, but you must know how to manage computers. Because if you don't have a system of managing computers, they can break. It can be chaotic in the computer center if learners do not have rules to follow. Even in the way of teaching, there are certain steps that you can adopt in order to have a coordinated approach in terms of running the computer center. School as an organization, the role of the school culture, it is very important to promote a school culture. Here at this school, this is what we do. Here at this school, this is how we greet each other. School culture is actually felt even by the people that are not of that school, if it has manifested itself very well. So as opposed to our individual culture, because we know we have people that are coming from different culture, as a school we need to have a school culture that is promoted and that is known and respected at that particular school. Managing HIV and AIDS in school, there are policies, government policies, and also policies that you have make endemic to your school of how to manage HIV and AIDS in school setup. How are the people who are HIV positive, how are they being treated? How do you prevent that there are stigma attached to those that are having HIV or that are HIV positive and living with AIDS? Universal rights and responsibility, these are enshrined in the Constitution. Every teacher, every learner, every principal, they have the rights. But as we always say, rights goes together with responsibilities. So what are these universal? Those that are binding us all together. Because in order for you to bring welfare to a school, these rights and responsibilities must be respected. Cultural diversity. We are all coming from different cultural backgrounds, and the cultural diversity at schools must be promoted in order for us to form what we call a school culture. So we are united in our diversity. So there are certain patterns and attitudes that can be portrayed when you are promoting cultural diversity. The code of ethics for principals. I have already alluded to the fact that principals are guided by certain ethics, and these ethics must be adhered to. What are these ethics? What are expected of a principal? This is what I expect from students to know. Types of organization, we have public sectors and also private sectors. What are the difference between public sectors and private sectors? And then school as a professional organization. The school belongs to a profession. And there are certain characteristics that are expected for a school to be branded as a professional organization. And you look at the role of the principal as a professional person. And we can compare from the olden days how the principal was perceived and what is the changing role of the current or contemporary principal. The contemporary principal is an instructional leader. What does it mean to be an instructional leader? Those are the challenging questions that I will leave with you as you are going through your study guides and preparing yourself for the upcoming examinations. Characteristics of vision of new professionalism, or which we call the Gestalt theory. So this is a new way of looking at yourself as a principal, or as a principal, and what are the characteristics of this new vision. Rewarding and recognitions. We always reward teachers and learners, but there are certain criteria that can be followed when you are rewarding teachers and learners. How are these rewards, how are they structured? What areas do you recognize? Is it only academic? Do you also go to sports and also extramural activities? Managing issues regarding schools. The roles and responsibility of a head of department. The head of department has different roles to play. And in your study guides, they are divided according to different categories. For example, the head of department in terms of curriculum development, head of department in terms of staff welfare, and so on. So the roles and responsibility of a head of department, you should be able to demarcate them according to those categories. Maslow theories of human motivation. We know that the Maslow theory is the theory of motivation, because if this the basic needs are satisfied, we are motivated to move to the next level, and then if that level is satisfied, we move to the next level. The same also applies to our staff members. After our staff members have been, qualified, they need to go further in terms of enriching themselves through continuous professional development, in order to reach the higher level. That's why you see they are moving from, let's say, a diploma to a degree to master's degrees to become doctors and so on. That is now how they become motivated as they are satisfying different levels. And that should be encouraged in school. You will need to look at the school budget. How is the school budget structured? What are the requirements for a budget? Why is a budget very important? Who should be involved in drawing up the budget? And after the budget has been drawn, how does it come into operation? All of those aspects are covered in your study guide. Strategies for preventing the wasting of school resources. School resources are becoming vandalized. People are not worried at the aspect of looking after them. So, what are the strategies that you can put in place in order to prevent the wasting of resources? For example, you can apply the 3 R's: reuse, reduce, and recycle. And then rules of conduct for learners. There are general rules of conduct for learners. What are these rules of conduct? And how do you apply these rules of conduct for learners in the school situation? And then the importance of parental involvement. We know the triangle of involvement, where you need the parent, the teacher, and the learner. So what is the importance of the parent? What role can a parent play in terms of enhancing education, in terms of making sure that the child or the learner do his or her homework, in terms of monitoring discipline in the school setup? So what is the importance of parental involvement? I want you to interrogate that question and to be able to come up with good discussions as far as that is concerned. Management issues regarding schools, managing of our health and safety. The two goes hand in hand. The health of the learners. What is it that they are eating? How can they eat healthy? How can they prevent obesity? You can look at the safety of the learners. How is the school site secured to provide safety to the learners? What are the policies in place in terms of emergency? So it's a very broad topic that you can really indulge into and come up with very good discussions. Personnel management issues. It's actually personnel management issues. Sports management and planning. It is very important that sports is managed appropriately, and that goes together with the planning of the school. Information management, ICT. How is ICT managed at your school? What are the important aspects that you can put in place? And then finally, I want to give you a few tips to avoid mistakes during the examination or before the examination. First of all, make sure that you prepare yourself thoroughly. Follow this presentation, because the presentation is giving you an idea of what to expect in the coming examination. And don't just study the presentation alone. You must do it in conjunction with your study guide. You must have your study guide. You must go through the learning outcomes in your study guide. You must be able to analyze and show understanding of what you read. Many students read, but they don't understand, because the language that is used in the study guides is in academic language. So that's why you need to read more and more and more, and you need to try and apply. You need to ask yourself, what I am reading, do I understand? Am I able to say in my own words things that I am reading, or do I just read and go blank? Read the question with understanding and make sure you give relevant responses according to the marks allocated. Sometimes you find students, they know or they have studied very well, but the answer they give is not appropriate to the question. You will spot that answer at another place. So that means that students sometimes do not understand the question and give the relevant answer to the appropriate question. So please read the question. There are certain clues that always that you can use in order to know whether the answer that I'm providing is relevant to the question that is asked or not. Make sure you understand all concepts and the application in context. So you read with understanding. Don't just read, read with understanding. As I said, it's an academic language that is being used. Make sure you go down, you research, you read other sources that are supplementary to what you are reading if you don't understand this particular concept. Never leave blank spaces open. Never skip certain questions. Please try to use your general understanding if you don't have the answer, or maybe that question is a bit difficult for you. Try to use your general understanding. Maybe as a tutor, I may spot some relevance in your general understanding so that you can score marks. More importantly also, sometimes you give answers or responses to a question, but then it's so limited. Please look at the marks. If it is 10 marks, then try to give 10 facts. And not only to write 2 things and expect to get 10 or 8. Many students are losing marks because they don't pay attention to that aspect. The final thing that I want to tell the students that are doing combined subjects, you are going to get additional information that will be on your portal, because I have analyzed the type of study guides that you are using, and in some cases there are missing information, and that will be provided to you on your portal. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and good luck with your upcoming examination in 2020. Thank you.